What is God's most important commandment? Now, when someone asked Jesus this question once, he didn't say, "That's a ridiculous question. All of God's commands are equally crucial." Instead, Jesus has an immediate answer ready, as if he's thought about it a lot. The most important commandment, he says, is to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, when someone asks Jesus this question in Luke, he doesn't even have to say anything at all, because the man asking the question already knows the right answer. He knows the answer because other Jewish teachers have concluded the same thing: love God and love your neighbor. Everything else God has ever said is summed up by these two commands. It's all about love. When you think about it, this is kind of a funny point for Jesus and his fiercest critics to agree on. We certainly don't have consensus about it today. To some people, it's all about love sounds like freedom from oppressive constraints. To other people, it's all about love smacks of dangerous moral squishiness. But the teachers who had drawn this conclusion in Jesus' day were about as far as you could get from moral squishes. These were hardcore religious types. They were the sort of people who could recite hundreds of detailed religious rules from memory, and who obsessed over the tiniest details. They're the sort of people who would ticket the Pope for jaywalking on a dead-end street. For them, it's all about love wasn't a cop-out or an excuse for doing whatever they wanted. It was a serious conclusion based on the closest possible reading of their sacred texts. What God wanted in every circumstance, at the end of the day, was love. All the rest were details about how to get love done. As Jesus puts it, do this one thing, love, and you'll have done everything. When I first started to really grasp that for God it's all about love, I felt overwhelming relief. Religion can seem so complicated. There are so many rules, it's hard to remember them all. Trying to keep all of them at the same time can feel like trying to juggle loose jelly beans. And then there are all the secondary questions that have to be worked out. Like, how many beers are too many beers? Or should the percentage of my income that I share with other people be calculated before or after taxes? What kind of actions are acceptable on a date? How many phone calls a month do you have to make to have really honored your mother? When Jesus says it's all about love, most of us give a sigh of relief. There's a beautiful simplicity about this kind of religion, like a good mathematical law. No matter what the moral question any of us face, the right answer is always love. In every situation, all we need to do is weigh, what does love ask of me in this case? It sounds incredibly liberating until you actually try to live this way. I mean, have you all ever tried loving somebody? I'm not even talking about the really hard people right now. I'm talking about the people you'd willingly invite to your birthday party. Loving people is hard. Sometimes they resist your love like a cranky house cat. Sometimes you don't know what they need. Sometimes you would rather watch Netflix than give it to them. There's no way of knowing in advance what love might require of you. A lot of commandments you could actually keep by eating Oreos in bed. No one has ever committed murder or adultery or perjury while they were wrapped up in an electric blanket with a pack of double stuffed. But love takes energy and creativity and risk and sacrifice. And there's no way to check it off your list. Even if you do it perfectly today, you'll have to get up tomorrow and do it again. Actually, try loving for a while, and you'll probably start wishing Jesus would bring back good old-fashioned religion with its 10,000 detailed rules. It's all about love might be an easy principle to state, but there's no such thing as just loving. Love is the most expensive, demanding thing that exists. It's an entire life oriented around the interests of God and other people. It's a command that implicates every moment. The religious leader who comes to Jesus already knows that this is the answer. He just doesn't like the implications of having to practice it. He's probably hoping in the back of his mind that Jesus will say something else. But nope. Jesus agrees it really is all about loving God and neighbor. It really is that simple and that complicated. Because once you know it's all about love, you have to start figuring out what love means and what it requires in an almost infinite number of different situations. Not everything that people call love meets Jesus' definition. Some of it is just selfishness, loving what others do for us. We confuse loving with controlling, or avoiding, or keeping everyone comfortable. We limit love to our convenience. We poison love by lying or cheating in its name. The list goes on and on. All of Jesus' life and teachings, everything he says and does, is a living essay in what loving means to God. Love is consistent, sacrificial, and generous. Love carries others' burdens. Love is both gracious and truthful. Love is relentlessly committed to the interests of the other, even at its own expense. The most important question we can ask while reading any story of Jesus is, what are we learning in this moment about what real love looks like? Let's read Luke 10, verses 25 to 28. One day, an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: "Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus replied, "What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?" The man answered, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." "Right," Jesus told him. "Do this, and you will live." I'm Megan Larissa Good, and this has been Reading Jesus. Thanks for joining me for a few minutes in Luke, and I'll see you next time.